Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with award-winning jazz vocalist Alexis Cole on her 2021 CD called Sky Blossom. This is her debut release on Zoho Music, performing swinging big band classics from her time as the vocalist for the West Point Band's Jazz Nights. Sky Blossom is a military term from an opening parachute and is a nod to Cole's military service and her credo of jumping into the unknown with faith. We cover this new CD, COVID, touring, and so much more. Enjoy.
Alexis, it's great to catch up with you. How's life?
Oh my gosh, it couldn't be better. I'm in Denver for the Songbirds Jazz Festival, and I just spent the night at the Indian Hot Springs Hotel in Idaho Springs, and I'm feeling very relaxed. So, fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, I got to tell you, I've talked to so many musicians since March of 2020. It's so nice to hear people are out and about and things are changing. It was just really bleak for so long, so now activity is just great to hear about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually postponed all my gigs until this October. So October has had a flurry of things that were rescheduled, and I've just been working every weekend in different places, and the same for November. It's just really great. Lots of touring.
That's wonderful. So, your newest album, your newest venture is Sky Blossom. I guess with that being said, with the pandemic and COVID-19, how does it feel to have new material and to be able to perform this live now?
We're not touring with the big band, but actually I do some of this material with my trio. It's one of the things that was great to work on, something that we, could be productive during the pandemic. So even though there wasn't performing, focusing my energies on finishing up this album was really great. And I'm so happy to share this music finally with the world. During
this time of lockdown and quarantine, it was a moment of self-reflection for a lot of us, many moments, I should say. What did you learn about yourself that maybe you didn't realize that's going to make you stronger now as you get back out and promote this album and get back on stage?
I think I always thought that I would just die if I couldn't perform. But during the pandemic, I just found other ways to be creative. And it was really, because for me, performing is really a creative act. I'm very spontaneous on stage, and I like to crack jokes and riff with the audience and stuff. And I don't know if you know about my website, jazzvoice.com, but I created, if your listeners don't, I created this online educational platform connecting singers of all levels with, some of the best performers and teachers in jazz vocals. Doing that really was a great, expression of my creativity. And I'm one of these artists that's not phobic about business. I actually kind of dig it. My mother's, an entrepreneur, and she worked for the NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. So growing up, I just watched her help other businesses and sort of absorbed that along with my father, musician, and his music and everything. And so I feel like I really am, this apple that didn't fall far from the tree of my parents. So I think that, being able to create a business that's successful and supports the community was actually a really great creative endeavor. And sure, I wrote some songs and I did some performances online, which were actually much more satisfying than I ever could have imagined. The real thing that I learned was that creativity doesn't just come in performing, that you can have other expressions of it. I also got really into DIY stuff at my cabin. I plumbed a washing machine and an outdoor shower, and I put a new roof on my shed, and I just did all this stuff that I never ever would have dreamed that I could have done. And having the time to fail was critically important. And I just feel like, we try to cram so much into our daily lives, even fun things like social things kind of stopped, and I just had all this time on my hands to try whatever I wanted, because I knew if I failed, I would have time to clean up my mess and try again. I really dug that.
With this new album, Sky Blossom, it's another evolutionary step for you, another great sound. What do you hope the listener gets from this new project?
It's a very soulful album. I think the arrangements were all written for me and for my musical sensibility, our great music director, Scott Archangel. And I feel like they just have a quality that's very powerful and potent. I feel like people will feel that power when they listen to it. I mean, every song is different. For instance, at the end of Joy Spring, there's this part in 5/4 that I'm kind of scatting over, and that the band is building, va, 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 and then it ends with this big boom, and they're kind of part of it's written in fifths with the low brass and reeds together, like in the sort of power chord. I call it the Archangel power chord. It's got this kind of world music element also that's just, just really expresses my music. I didn't write the arrangement, but Scott knows me and he knows my musical sensibilities, and he wrote it for me to sing. And I studied Indian classical singing years ago, and sort of bring that into my improv. I feel like it's got all this like power. Feel the power of that 18-piece big band. Actually, it's like a 20-piece big band because there's percussion and vibes and guitar. So,
speaking of power and live music, now that we're getting back to it and we've been away from it for so long, what do you hope we all collectively realize about the power of live music now that we're getting back to it?
The obvious thing is how indispensable it is in our lives, how important it is to connect. It's great that we found these substitutes. And actually, I'd say the same thing about the classroom. I had to go online for all my teaching at SUNY Purchase, where I'm the head of the jazz vocal program. I thought it was great. I actually, it so far exceeded my expectations. And even, meeting people on Zoom, now that I've met them in real life, I really don't feel like, oh, I've only met you on the computer. I feel like, oh, you're my old friend, and now I'm seeing you again. It's really quite a good substitute. But being back in the classroom and being back on the live stage, it makes me realize, yes, we were lucky. It was pretty good. Zoom was pretty great. But being in person is just so much more satisfying and so much more to share with each other on stage. Like I said, I like to crack a lot of jokes and stuff at my shows, and you just can't capture that on Zoom. I mean, a little bit, but it's just nothing like being in person with people. It's just, we really need each other.
Yeah, I agree. Alexis, thank you for opening up about the album and what's going on with this COVID world and the future. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Alexis for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.